Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of FiST Chat, the vodcast that features discussions on the topics of film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we doing today, Steve? Have you tweeted me today?
No, I haven't tweeted you today, Ben, but I will, and I'll tweet all those FiST Chat fans later on in the week.
Absolutely. And before we get into our little milieu here of social media, time to talk about ours, actually. Don't forget our website, www.fistchat.com. You can get all our links there and everything about FiST Chat. Interact with us on Facebook and Twitter. Love to hear from you. Check out all our back episodes, YouTube, Vimeo, Digicosm TV, and you can subscribe to audio on iTunes, RSS, and FeedBurner. And of course, check out our blogs. We blog weekly, and hope you all enjoy them as we enjoy writing them.
We certainly do.
So now that social media addiction, there's no other way to really describe it. So we'll just get straight into it. Now, I'll just explain this briefly, but basically, if you're feeling the urge to stay connected 24/7, you can't resist the urge to post that tweet or that Facebook, post. You could be addicted to social media. And the interesting thing I found here was there was a study done in Germany where was it? A team from Chicago University's Booth Business School conducted an experiment using BlackBerry devices to test the willpower of 205 people between the ages of 18 and 85 in the German city of Würzburg. And basically what they were asked to do is 7 times a day over the course of a week was to identify desires they were experiencing and the strength of said desires. And high on that list was to check emails, to check out Facebook, Twitter, and do all of that sort of thing. And, is it that, do you think it actually triggers an addictive response? Do you think, Steve?
Of course it does. It's behavioural. So, and this has been witnessed any media, ever since, I guess, television really came to the fore and people were worried about the fact that, because you've got ads breaks and 30-second spots and that sort of thing, that people's attention spans were shortening. But it's actually a conditioning that occurs, and the same with social media. I mean, before we had smartphones, if you took someone's phone away for a day, they couldn't text, they would almost go mental. And anyone who's lost a phone gets really, really upset, and it's not usually about the phone, it's about the lack of connectivity. So it's... I imagine if you're plugged into Facebook and you're used to updating, or if you're just used to checking your mail, or if you're used to checking the latest news feeds, if you don't have it, where's that hit? You're going to go crazy.
No, I know. What shock horror! You might have to actually look around and maybe breathe in some air and take in the sights around you. But I mean, the funny thing is, I've got a colleague that has a teenage son, and apparently, trying to prize the his Samsung Galaxy S3 out of his hands is something of a chore, and it actually speaks to that. I think that we've got a generation that has been born into this environment, this social media environment, where they're expected to share a lot of their life on these platforms, and they're not just connected; they're plugged in. This is almost Matrix-like.
But you're plugged in because it's so easy. I mean, a phone is not that big. You can pick it up, you can put it down, you can look at it quickly. They have great high-res screens now. They've got games on them. You can talk to people that you don't have to talk to in real life. I mean, I always wondered, just back in the old days of mobile phones, people would text each other rather than actually talk. And that still occurs, I think, even now with the trending you see in Twitter. People would rather tweet, I think, than actually talk, because it's a more accessible medium. And easier to ignore.
Yeah, exactly right. Just one final thing on the study, and this probably just goes over the point that you've just mentioned there. If the study compared cigarettes and alcohol in terms of addiction, The one thing social media has on those is that it's nowhere near as expensive, which makes it a lot easier to get hooked on it.
Really? I mean, what about those data plans, Ben? No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, unless they start putting taxes on it, like they do with cigarettes, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Just before we got on, actually, we were talking about how people were worried when kids were given calculators to use in school, and how that they wouldn't be able to do complex mathematical calculations.
Like long division. Who can do long division? If you can do long division, tweet us. I'd love to meet you.
Even if you know what long division is, that we'll be very impressed. Remember being taught that in school, but like you said before we got on, I don't know if I can remember how to do it, but it's it's amazing. Is this another sort of thing taken to another level? You mentioned that it's easier to tweet someone, it's easier to leave a Facebook comment, it's easier to send an IM, an instant message. Is that going to replace things like? Should we be worried about people not communicating now in the proper way, person to person?
Oh, look, I don't know whether we should be worried. I think things are definitely going to be different. Whether or not it's the world that you and I would want to live in is one issue. But if it's the world that everyone that's 15 today wants to live in or feel more comfortable living in, then who's to say that it's not right? I can certainly see some disadvantages because we're the generation, Ben, that are lucky enough to have seen both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
And as you say, generational change is a very interesting thing. And we've moved from you and me being brought up with, you better be able to use a slide rule or, long division or whatever because, your calculator might not be there, to basically, I don't think you could ever be disconnected from a calculator. You can use Google to calculate something for you. So, do you really need to know how to do it? I mean, the answer is yes, but can you get by without it? Of course.
Absolutely. But that's what I mean. Is that a problem? Are we just going to be, are we transitioning from being able to do these things to knowing where to look for how to do these things?
When I was a kid and I was studying at school, I used to daydream about, like people on Lost in Space and Star Trek and all those sci-fi things. And you wonder, how can they build those great big, spaceships, and how can they travel through space, and how can they do all those amazing things? And I wondered if they went to the same schools that I was going to. Yeah. And then I sort of figured no, because by the time I finished school, and you look at the age of these people in these shows, it can't be right. So I figure that they've had the, Star Trek, which is set in the future. They just use Google for everything. Yeah. And that's how they stay in the air. And there's probably an argument to suggest that somewhere in the future there'll be such a database of correct knowledge somewhere that you probably won't need to know the basics anymore. You just step up to the next level.
So what will we be doing then if that's the case? That's the real question.
Well, I think you'll find that most things will be automated. I think computers...
Does that mean our connection with technology becomes even more profound and more direct?
Oh, I think so. I don't think there's any question. And what I would find fascinating is to see where it will stop. I mean, where will we say, you have to know the basics for that? If a computer can design a building and get all the loadings right and do all the engineering for you, as you draw in the shape, then do you really need to know, or you just trust the computer? Yeah. Absolutely. If the program doesn't work, well, then, you probably stop using that program and use one that does work. I don't know. I hope they don't start designing planes like that, although they probably already do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to draw a line under that, I guess, for the time being, if you're Facebooking or tweeting more often than you should, then maybe you should just take a break and go out and get some fresh air because it's a nice world out there.
But don't have a cup of coffee.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, we'll move on to our news bites. Now, this film one's quite interesting. We're going to tie in social media into all of our news bites today. And the first one is to do with the social network, which is apparently a big work of fiction, at least in terms of how it fares with the history of it. But I came across this interesting article where apparently it was there are transcripts of instant messages between Zuckerberg and his Harvard mates there doing their bit when they're setting up Facebook. But one thing that I think the movie actually captured, and this is actually borne out in this instant message here, you've got here Zuckerberg saying to a friend, on an instant messaging conversation, Eduardo's paying for my servers. And the friend says, oh, yeah, sucker born every day. Zuckerberg then says, nah, he thinks it will make money. The friend says, what do you think? And Zuckerberg says, well, I don't know business stuff. I'm just content to make something cool. And that's actually at the crux of what is happening in the movie. Now, maybe the details are different, but the movie covered this ground as well. And the rift between the two guys was about the fact that Zuckerberg was wanting to make it cool wanting to explode it and not sell out. And Eduardo was wanting to obviously make money out of it. So,
well, the rest is history.
Oh, absolutely. But it's interesting. We'll post this particular link during the week because you should have a read of some of these instant messages that purportedly went between all these guys, because it is quite fascinating reading and sort of bears out in the way the movie played out. But also I think it also gives probably Zuckerberg a fairer hand than what the movie did, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, it probably is, but, why would Hollywood let facts get in the way of a good story?
Exactly right. I believe that's what Aaron Sorkin said when he wrote the scripts. All right, we'll move on to our science news bite now, and I'm sure, Steve, this is something that definitely would interest you in terms of social media and how scientists aren't really using it to get their messages across. And you would think that scientists would be onto this sort of thing, and just an interesting stat here, and this is for America. Although 72% of internet using Americans are on Facebook, less than two-thirds are college faculty, and a lot, and hardly much more than that are science-based. And there's this article here are basically saying that, who cares if scientists are slow to adopt social media? I think that probably they should care, I would say.
Well, Ben, if people are able to post photos of themselves down at the beach or what they're eating or where they're going, why wouldn't a scientist post what they're doing? It kind of makes sense. And I think, they could really humanise what they're doing. It's not so much, about their research or what they're doing in that lab, but it's about the fact that they're normal people and must have normal friends. So they should share exactly the same sorts of things with their work, and their work is generally more interesting than most people. Sorry, everyone else, but I just think science is interesting. So,
and it's important that they actually get their message across. Again, some more stats from America. Like, this is quite odd, actually. Adults over the age of 35 never learned about stem cells, nanotechnology, climate change in school, and they depend on the media to learn about these things, which is probably not the best source of information.
Well, it's just not consistent enough, and unfortunately, I think while people say that we rely on the media and we want more information, the fact is unless it sounds like a cure for cancer, they're not actually that interesting.
Yeah.
But I actually follow a couple of scientists on Twitter, and I find what they're doing quite interesting. They quite often, tweet stuff that's out of my league, at my level, but very often they still have interesting conversations on there. So, I think that's really positive. And they actually work in the field of Alzheimer's predominantly. But, I think all scientists should be out there doing that, just simply because it just gives more people, and getting back to the social media thing, it gives people more freedom to find information or to connect with people that are working in a particular field.
Oh, and encourage them too, I would say. And it can only help to bolster numbers for science.
Well, ask questions. That's really all we should be doing. Ask questions. And, the great thing about social media is it's interactive. And if you ask a question, if you tweet us here at FiST Chat, we will answer.
That's
if you
right.
send us a letter by snail mail, we might never get it.
That's right. And just wrapping up now with our tech news bite, there was a rather long article that I came across in Technology Spectator about the road ahead for social media. And it was really the last paragraph of that article that caught my attention. We are transitioning from a modern society that is largely defined by almost universal literacy, content consumption, to a future society that will be largely defined by almost universal authorship. Everyone is becoming a published participant in the construction of meaning, and the young are trading privacy for influence to author the future. Very, very powerful kind of image being described there. And you can see that could be happening right now thanks to the social media technologies that are still really in their infancy.
Well, absolutely. You see a lot of great young people out there doing things that I, at their age, could never have imagined. And it's purely because they've got an interest and they're willing to communicate that interest in whatever field that might be, and they use social media. What I think that's interesting about it is that their success in the communication channels isn't because, they're so good at using social media. It's generally because those, particularly kids, have got a lot of good things to say. Yep. And I think that that's the key to the success. But yes, I mean, FiST Chat fits into that sort of category. Yep. And a lot of people do use the internet for that. Hopefully it's this sort of communication and dispersal of knowledge that gets everyone a little bit excited about whatever it is they're interested in and follow it up.
Absolutely, including following us up at the end of this show and following us on all of our other shows, of course.
Absolutely, true.
All right, that's it. We're out of time, so thanks again, Steve, for the chat.
Pleasure, Ben, and it's great to be a part of, I guess, internet broadcasting and social media.
Absolutely, second that as well. All right, that's it for this week's episode, so we'll catch you next week.